If you're walking every day to manage your leg circulation after 60, I need you to pause and listen carefully. Walking is not wrong, but across vascular rehabilitation programs worldwide, the research tells a consistent and uncomfortable story. Walking alone fails to activate the specific muscle pump your legs depend on most. Scientists have measured blood flow in the main vein behind the knee during normal sitting. After just 60 minutes of staying still, flow velocity drops by as much as 50% in otherwise healthy adults. And walking, despite its benefits, never sustains the muscle contraction long enough to overcome that deficit in people over 60. You are doing something right. You're just missing the mechanism that makes it actually work. In the next several minutes, I'm going to walk you through a 30-second test that tells you exactly where your circulation stands right now, show you the exercises vascular surgeons actually prescribe after leg surgery to restore blood flow. And I'm saving this one for last, because once you understand the science behind it, you will never look at your legs the same way again. The single movement that rehabilitation specialists worldwide call the second heart, and why most people over 60 have never been told it exists. My name is Dr. Elderly. I'm a vascular surgeon, which means I spend my career operating on the direct consequences of what happens when poor leg circulation goes ignored for too long. I've seen inside legs that looked perfectly normal from the outside. And I've watched what develops when the warning signs are written off as ordinary aging. That's why I make these videos, not to replace your doctor, but to give you the information that a 15-minute appointment simply doesn't have time for. Here's something that stops patients cold when I explain it in my office. By age 70, nearly 1 in 5 adults already has measurable peripheral artery disease in their legs. Not discomfort, not mild stiffness. Measurable disease, with arteries tightening, veins weakening, and blood beginning to pool in the lower legs instead of returning efficiently to the heart. The majority of those people don't know it. They feel cold feet and assume it's a drafty house. They notice their socks leaving deep marks around the ankle at the end of the day and chalk it up to a long afternoon. They wake up at 2 in the morning with a calf cramp that makes them gasp and think nothing more of it by morning. I had a patient named Gerald, 71 years old, retired, walked his neighborhood every morning without fail. He told me he was doing everything right, and he was trying. But by the time he came to see me, the swelling in his lower legs had become consistent. His feet were cold, even in summer, and balance had become quietly unreliable on uneven ground. The warning signs had been accumulating for years. The standard advice he'd received, keep walking, stay active, elevate your feet, was well-intentioned, but it was missing something critical. It was missing the specific muscle activation his venous return system was no longer getting on its own. Before we go further, I want you to take a quick test right now. You're starting with a perfect score of 5 points. For every symptom I describe that applies to you, subtract 1 point. Number 1. Do your feet or toes feel cold even when the room is warm? If yes, subtract 1. That's blood struggling to complete the full journey to your extremities. Number 2. Do your legs feel heavy or tired by the end of a normal day, not after exercise, just after regular sitting and light activity? If yes, subtract 1. That heaviness is blood and fluid pooling in your lower legs because the return flow has slowed. Number 3. Do you notice swelling around your ankles in the evening, or do your socks leave deep marks? Subtract 1. Number 4. Do you get leg cramps, especially at night? Subtract 1. Cramps happen when muscles are starved of oxygen, and oxygen travels in your blood. Number 5. Do you see spider veins or varicose veins that weren't there a few years ago? Subtract your final point. If you scored 5, your circulation is holding steady, and what I'm about to show you will help keep it that way. If you scored 3 or 4, your body is sending early signals, and this is exactly the right time to act. If you scored 2 or lower, what follows isn't optional, it's urgent. Write your score down right now. You'll want it when you come back in 2 weeks. What almost no one explains, not in a standard appointment, not in the health content most people find, is that restoring circulation after 60 isn't about moving more in general. It's about activating specific muscles in a specific sequence. Your heart pushes blood down to your legs easily. The hard part is getting it back up against gravity. Inside your veins, tiny one-way valves stop blood from falling backward. When those valves weaken with age, the only force that pushes blood back through them is muscular contraction. Stop the contractions, stop the pump. I'm going to show you 5 exercises that directly restart and strengthen that pump. No equipment, no gym, less than 15 minutes a day. And the final one, the one I teased at the start, is the reason surgeons around the world prescribe this movement above all others. Stay with me. Most people treat ankle pumps as something mild and preliminary, a gentle warm-up before the real work begins. For adults over 60 managing venous decline, Elevated ankle pumps are something categorically different. They're the fastest restart available for a pooling system that's been switched off. As we age, the one-way valves in the lower leg veins weaken and lose their ability to hold blood in place during return flow. That's the biological source of the ankle swelling, the cold toes, the persistent heaviness. These aren't cosmetic problems, they're mechanical failures in the return circuit. Elevated ankle pumps counter that failure by doing two things simultaneously, using gravity to assist blood back toward the heart and using active muscle contraction to push it there. Research on leg positioning shows that elevating the legs above the level of the heart significantly improves venous blood flow and reduces lower leg swelling, often within a short session. When you combine that elevation with rhythmic pumping, you give the return system two mechanical advantages at once. From there, press your toes down away from you, then pull them back up toward your nose. That's 1 repetition. 10 reps, a 10-second pause, repeated 3 times. The pace should be deliberate, not rushed. You can do this while watching television in the evening, when fluid has had all day to accumulate. This first exercise tackles the lower legs and ankles. But the blood that pools in the thighs and upper legs needs a completely different pump to move it. And most people never activate it sitting down. The seated march might sound like something for a children's classroom. What it is, for adults with slowing circulation after 60, is a direct intervention on the major veins of the upper leg, and research shows it can reset blood flow in under 30 seconds. When the quadriceps and hip flexors weaken from extended sitting, they stop squeezing the large veins of the thigh. Blood slows in those vessels. The same scientist who measured knee vein blood flow found that after just 30 minutes of sitting without leg movement, flow velocity dropped measurably. After 1 hour, it dropped by as much as 50% in healthy adults, not patients with vein disease. The same study found that just 20 seconds of deliberate leg muscle activation was enough to almost entirely reset that flow. To perform the seated march correctly, sit tall in a sturdy chair with your feet flat on the floor. Deliberately lift your right knee a few inches off the seat. Hold briefly, then lower it, then lift the left. The critical word is deliberately. Don't swing the leg upward with momentum. Contract the front of your thigh consciously with every lift. If your foot slaps the floor when it comes down, you're moving too fast. Controlled lowering means the muscle is working in both directions. 1 lift per second, 60 seconds total. You can do this during a phone call, at the dinner table, or during a commercial break. No one around you will notice. Your deep veins will. But the thigh pump and the lower leg pump together still don't reach the entire circuit. The next exercise flushes both in a single movement, and it does it in a way most people have never tried. The seated leg extension with toe point looks at first glance like a single muscle exercise. It's not. It's a complete circulation flush from ankle to hip, using the biomechanics of the knee and calf in combination to create something far more powerful than either produces alone. When your calf's blood vessels are squeezed by the muscle wrapping around them, blood is physically driven upward at speed. Researchers describe this mechanism precisely enough that they've given it a clinical name: the second heart. A single strong calf contraction forces blood upward through the deep veins with genuine mechanical force, not assisted flow, not enhanced circulation. Forced flow. The seated extension with toe point gives you that contraction in a controlled, joint-friendly format. From a seated position, slowly straighten one leg out in front of you until the knee is as straight as comfortable. Then point your toes away from you, like a ballet dancer extending the foot. Feel the calf tighten. Hold for 2 seconds. Then pull your toes back toward your shin. Feel the calf stretch and release, and slowly lower the foot. When you extended the knee, your quadriceps squeezed the veins in your thigh. When you pointed your toes, your calf compressed the deep veins in your lower leg. 1 movement, full circuit, 10 repetitions per leg. A 2024 study published in the Archives of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation found that seated leg work in adults over 60 improved walking speed by 28% and stair climbing ability by 45% in just 8 weeks. Physicians recognize walking speed as a key vital sign. It's directly linked to fall risk, loss of independence, and long-term survival. That's what this exercise is protecting. Pause for a moment right now and drop your test score in the comments. Just the number. Write it today so you have your starting point. And come back in 2 weeks and tell me what changed. Most people hear single-leg balance training and think it's about fall prevention. That's true. But the mechanism that makes it powerful for circulation is something almost no one explains, and it changes how you should think about this exercise entirely. After 60, balance declines because the stabilizing muscles in the ankle and calf stop receiving enough regular activation to stay strong. That starts a loop that's hard to reverse once it begins. Less balance confidence means less movement. Less movement means slower blood flow. Slower blood flow accelerates the exact muscular and vascular decline that made balance worse in the first place. Large population studies referenced by the National Institutes on Aging found that the ability to stand on one leg is among the strongest individual predictors of future falls and mobility loss after 60. Adults who perform poorly on basic single-leg balance tests are significantly more likely to experience serious falls within the next several years. Here's what makes this a circulation exercise, not just a balance drill. Walking only puts you on one leg for a fraction of a second. A single leg hold keeps you on one leg for 20 to 30 seconds, which means the calf, ankle, and hip stabilizers on that side are contracting continuously for that entire duration. That sustained contraction creates a prolonged pump effect. Blood isn't being pushed upward in brief bursts. It's being pushed upward the entire time you're holding. That's a fundamentally different stimulus. Stand next to a counter or chair. Place one hand on it lightly for orientation, not for support. Shift your weight onto one leg and lift the other foot just 1 or 2 inches off the floor. Stand tall, eyes forward, breathe normally. Hold for 20 to 30 seconds. Switch sides, 2 rounds per side. As this becomes easier, reduce how much you rely on your hand until you're hovering it above the surface without contact. This builds the stabilizers, sustains the pump, and trains the nervous system to react faster during a stumble. But even the sustained pump of the single leg hold doesn't activate the calf muscle system as deeply as the final exercise. That one uses a specific mechanical principle that surgeons return to again and again across every vascular rehabilitation program in the world. And it's the movement that ties everything else together. Here's the exercise I mentioned in the opening, the one that shows up consistently across surgical rehabilitation protocols worldwide. The one I've watched bring patients back from the edge of serious vascular decline. It looks like a simple heel raise. What it is, mechanically, is the most powerful safe activation of the venous return pump available to you without equipment, without medication, and without professional supervision. Your calf muscles don't just move your foot. They physically squeeze the deep veins of the lower leg and drive blood upward against gravity with each contraction. A single strong calf contraction can generate enough pressure to push blood upward at speed through vessels that have been pooling for hours. Clinical studies in vascular rehabilitation show that simple calf pump activation can significantly improve venous return and reduce lower leg swelling in older adults, and that this improvement is directly linked to the strength and duration of the contraction, not the number of repetitions. That's where most people go wrong. They do heel raises. They come up, they come down, they keep moving. The pump engages briefly and disengages immediately. The hold is what makes the difference. When you rise onto your toes and pause at the top for 3 to 5 seconds, you keep the calf fully contracted long enough to force pooled blood out of the lower legs in a way that quick repetitions can't replicate. That sustained contraction is the entire point. A landmark report cited by the National Institute on Aging identified calf strength as one of the single strongest predictors of whether someone over 60 maintains independent living. Seniors with stronger calves had dramatically fewer falls and were significantly less likely to need assisted living. Not because their legs looked different, but because the vascular and neuromuscular system those muscles support kept functioning. Here's how to perform this correctly. Stand behind a chair or countertop. Hold on lightly for balance, not support. Feet hip-width apart. Slowly rise up onto the balls of your feet, lifting your heels as high as comfortable. Now stop. Hold the top position for 3 to 5 seconds while breathing normally, eyes straight ahead. Then lower slowly, taking a full 3 seconds to come back down. That's 1 repetition. Begin with 8 to 10 reps. Over time, work toward 15 or 20 with full control. Unlike running or jumping, this puts minimal stress on the joints. It's appropriate even for people managing arthritis or early balance concerns, as long as a stable surface is within reach. And the results, when done consistently, are cumulative. Improved circulation, reduced evening swelling, stronger ankles, and measurably better balance confidence, all building on each other week after week. Let's bring this together clearly, because I want you to leave with a system, not just a list. The elevated ankle pumps use gravity and muscle activation together to restart venous return in the lower legs. The most direct way to address the swelling and cold toes that come from blood pooling all day. The seated march resets blood flow in the major veins of the thighs and upper legs by activating the muscle pump that extended sitting switches off, and it takes under 60 seconds. The seated leg extension with toe point flushes the complete circuit from ankle to hip in a single controlled movement, protecting walking speed and stair climbing ability at the same time. The single leg circulation hold sustains the calf pump long enough to move blood in a way that quick reps can't, while simultaneously building the ankle stability and reaction speed that protect you from falls. And the standing calf pump hold, the exercise that surgical rehabilitation programs worldwide return to above all others, activates the body's second heart with enough force and duration to overcome pooling, restore venous return, and rebuild the muscular foundation your circulation depends on. Together, these 5 exercises address the full circuit. Under 15 minutes a day, no equipment, and each one reinforces the others. Here's what I want you to do right now before you close this video. Not all 5 at once, just one. Tonight, do the standing calf pump hold. 8 slow, controlled reps with the 3 to 5 second pause at the top. That's it. One movement, 2 minutes. Tonight. Because the body you have at 75 or 80 is being decided by the habits you build right now. Small and specific, done consistently, changes what's possible in ways that ambitious and abandoned never will. If this video gave you something real, something your standard appointments haven't had time to cover, share it. There are people in your life right now who need exactly this. A parent, a spouse, a friend over 65 who mentions heavy legs or cold feet and writes it off as just getting older. That share could genuinely matter. Subscribe to this channel because what's coming next will surprise you. We're going to cover the common evening sitting position that compresses the main vein behind your knee and quietly undoes everything your exercises have built, and the 1-second swap that fixes it entirely. And leave a comment with your number from the test, just the number. I read every single one, and when you come back in 2 weeks, I want to see what changed. The information in this video is for educational purposes only and does not replace personalized medical advice. Before making changes to your exercise routine, especially if you're managing a chronic condition, recovering from a procedure, or taking medications, speak with your doctor or a qualified healthcare provider. Your safety matters more than any single video. Use this as a starting point for a better conversation, not a reason to act without one.